Hello, I'm Poncho and welcome to the first actual devlog, as the last one was more of just a sneak peek into the game state. In this video we will go over the features and development on my current small project, Red's Strange Adventure, which will be released for free on itch.io. Also, right before we start, remember subscribing helps me to keep on releasing free projects and learning about game dev. Also join the Discord, it's in the description. And yes, I'm using text-to-speech as my accent is really bad. Anyways, let's get started. So first I opened Unity and created a 2D Unity scene. Then I started working on the tile sets. I downloaded some sprites from the course I'm taking, and made some tile rules, which is a feature Unity has, which allows you to automate tile placement like I'm showing here. Anyways, after that I then started working on the player animations, which I also downloaded from the course. I made some player states, which are essentially how your player knows, hey, I'm supposed to be running. After that I did a bunch of, quote-unquote boring stuff, like coding, mainly the movement. Then I made the first level, which I had to redo 3 times due to me changing the game direction. Either ways, I should address what this game is about. So it's basically like some sort of platformer that encourages speed running. You've got lives, and if you lose them all you'll restart from the beginning, but you gain a life for every level you complete. I'll also add pickups, which give you extra lives. Anyways, let's continue. So I had finished the player movement. I then added collision to the tile maps, which was easy, as I just had to add some collider component, and a composite collider, which is necessary for enemy AI. Anyways, I then started adding death to the player. I added water, which I later replaced with spikes. I also added a death screen, which I later removed, and instead the player just immediately respawns. Finally, I started working on enemy movement, which was easy to implement. I just had a collider, which checks if it's touching the edge of the ground. Now thanks to that composite collider the ground now has an edge, and since the enemy collider is a little bit ahead, when it hits a wall the collider won't be touching any edges as it will be inside, so instead the enemy will turn. Same goes for having a ledge. That is, as long as that composite collider I mentioned earlier is actually enabled, but it turns out I forgot to tick a box saying to use that composite collider, and I ended up spending 3 hours fixing enemy movement. But after so the enemy worked, until I realized it had like 5 more bugs. The main one being it had no gravity. However, I fixed them fairly quickly. After doing so, in order to finish player mortality, I made it so when the player hits something tagged with either enemy or hazard the death screen pops up, or now just immediately respawns and also loses a life, which I added later on. I then also added a death yeet because why not? Now that player mortality was a thing, I started working on actually passing levels. I made an exit sign that takes you to the next level, and removed that death screen I mentioned earlier. I also added a bow, which was, and still is, absolutely broken as it currently has no cooldown. In other words, machine gun go burr. Either ways, now everything should be working almost fine, right? Unless your fellow dev Poncho decides to add lives and points and a timer, and you might be wondering, what is wrong with that? Well, you see, when you go to a different level everything resets, including UI points, lives, etc. So I spent like 2 hours on the Unity API checking how to avoid things destroying in between scenes. After finding out how, I had to do a whole bunch of code, but I was finally able to finish that. Now you needed a way to get points. For that I added some coins, which were fairly easy to make. For the lives I just made you get a life for every level you pass. And finally for the time I just added 1 second to the timer every real life second. And now the main stuff is done, right? Well, no, because I, for some reason, decided I wouldn't make you start with a bow. So I proceeded to make a sort of Metroidvania style tooltip, and made the bow obtainable on the 3rd level, which I had already made, and now the core mechanics were finished. Next up I proceeded to make some new levels, which I'll show in a quick time lapse here. Anyways, that's about it for today's devlog. Sorry if it was a little bit longer than my usual content, but I had a lot of stuff to catch you up on. Next devlog I'll patch out some bugs, make even more levels, add a lot of polish, lighting, proper tutorials, and fix that bow. Also remember to subscribe, and join the Discord. Anyways, have a nice day.